All right, today we're talking about a kind of health checkup, but not for people. We're talking about one for your organization's technology, its data, its entire digital life. So let's dive right in and figure this out.
So let me just ask you straight up, is your digital world healthy? It's a really simple question, right? But the answer can be super complex. Because just like with our own health, the biggest problems aren't always the ones you can see on the surface.
I mean, think about it. Pretty much every organization today lives and breathes online. Your sales, your operations, how you talk to customers, it is all running on information systems. But being so dependent on technology creates these invisible risks, kind of like hidden illnesses that can grow and spread silently until, bam, you've got a full-blown crisis on your hands. And the key is to see these major risks not as one-off events, but as symptoms. You know? A data breach, for instance, isn't just bad luck. It's a symptom that your security immune system is weak. A big business interruption, that could be a sign of poor operational health. These aren't just IT problems. They're massive clues that the organization's overall digital health is in trouble.
So when you start seeing symptoms like these, what do? You definitely don't ignore them and hope they go away. No, you call in a specialist. And in the world of technology, that specialist is the information systems auditor.
Now, an information systems audit, or IS audit for short, it sounds really intimidating, doesn't it? But it's not about pointing fingers or getting people in trouble. A better way to think of it is like a professional, totally objective health assessment for all your tech. It's a deep dive to make sure your systems are safe, well-managed, and actually doing what they're supposed to do. It's really just a diagnostic process to make sure everything's working properly. And just like any good medical exam, a solid audit follows a really logical, structured process. You can break it down into three main phases. First, there's planning. That's basically figuring out what to test. Then you have the fieldwork, which is actually running those tests. And finally, reporting, which is delivering the diagnosis and the prescription. Let's walk through each one. Okay, first up, phase 1, planning. You can think of this as the auditor acting like a doctor who's reviewing a patient's entire medical history before they even think about ordering a single test. You gotta understand the patient before you can start diagnosing them, right? So here's the crucial part. Auditors don't just show up and start looking at everything. That would be a huge waste of time and money. Instead, they start with what's called a risk-based audit approach. They do a risk assessment to figure out what the most critical, highest risk areas of the business are. It's exactly like an ER doctor triaging patients. You focus your energy on the most life-threatening injuries first. And this focus on planning isn't just a suggestion, it is absolutely fundamental. Get this, the main certification exam for these tech doctors dedicates a full 18% of the entire score just to the audit process, meaning how you plan and carry out the examination. That tells you that without the right diagnostic plan, the whole checkup is pretty much worthless. Okay, so the plan is in place. That brings us to phase 2. This is the fieldwork stage, or as I like to think of it, running the tests. The doctor has reviewed the chart, and now it's time to gather some real, hard evidence about the patient's current condition. So, auditors use two main kinds of tests to do this. On one hand, you have compliance testing. This basically asks, are the rules and safety procedures we put in place actually being followed? Then, on the other hand, you have substantive testing. This asks a different question. Is the data itself actually correct and accurate? Think of it this way. A compliance test is like checking to see if the hospital policy says wash your hands. A substantive test is like checking the patient's blood sample for an actual infection. You need both to get the full picture. Now, to really get what these tests are looking for, we need to talk about an organization's internal defenses. Auditors call these controls. And a great way to think about them is like the body's immune system. It has multiple layers of protection, all designed to keep the organization healthy. The first layer is preventative controls. The vaccine analogy here is just perfect. These are things designed to stop an illness before it can ever take hold. Things like a firewall or making people use strong passwords. It's all about preventing a bad thing from ever happening. But no vaccine is foolproof. So if something manages to slip past that first line of defense, that's when detective controls are supposed to kick in. These are your alarms. Just like a blood test can spot an infection, things like security alarms or system logs are there to find a problem that's already happened so you can deal with it fast. And finally, if a problem is detected, you have to fix it. That's where corrective controls come in. This is your treatment plan. Things like having data backups so you can restore lost info, or having an incident response plan to handle a data breach. These controls are all about recovering and minimizing the damage. Now, auditors aren't just walking around with a stethoscope and a checklist anymore. The modern auditor's toolkit is seriously advanced. We're talking about using data analytics to comb through millions of transactions looking for weird patterns, using special software called computer-assisted audit techniques, or CATs, and even using AI to help run more sophisticated and continuous tests. The whole checkup has gone very, very high-tech. And all of this brings us to the final and maybe most important phase of the audit: reporting the results. After all the tests are done and the evidence is in, it's time for the doctor to deliver the diagnosis and, of course, the prescription for getting better. And I think this quote just nails it. A good audit report is not a critique. It's not a list of all the things you did wrong. It should be an objective, fact-based diagnosis of your digital health that gives you a crystal clear, actionable plan to improve. It's meant to be constructive, not critical. So, what's actually in this prescription? Well, it usually gives you an overall conclusion on the health of your systems. It'll have the detailed findings, that's the diagnosis. Then, and this is crucial, it provides actionable recommendations, that's the treatment plan. And finally, it should set up a follow-up schedule, just to make sure the patient is actually recovering and getting healthier. And at the end of the day, that is the ultimate goal here. An IS audit isn't about passing or failing some test. It's about a continuous cycle of getting better. It's about building a stronger, more resilient organization that has the digital fitness not just to survive whatever challenges come next, but to actually thrive. So I'll leave you with this to think about. What's the real health of your most critical systems? Do you even know what symptoms you should be looking for? And maybe most importantly, when was the last time they had a proper checkup?